What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. FantasyTeamAdvisors.com bringing them the bacon NFL DFS video for Week 5. We are going to go into the stacks. So we have 6 stacks that I want to look at. We're going to dig into the numbers a little bit. We are going to use some of our tools that you can find on FantasyTeamAdvisors.com. Under the NFL tab, you got our matchup tools / bacon station, fantasy football snap counts, red zones, stats, player projections. All of that's on the website. What I wanted to bring you guys are some stacks that we like in these games. We look at the over-unders. We look at the defensive matchups. We've got some players that have already been ruled out, such as Malik Neighbors and Khalil Shakir. So both guys that were in the original stacks, it's going to open up some value on these teams. So we're going to look at those. We're going to see what we can bring to the table. And if you guys want a chance to win either a week, a month, a yearly, or a lifetime pass to FantasyTeamAdvisors.com. At the end of this video, I'm going to link our the NFL main slate breakdown. And in that, all you got to do is follow the rules. So you got to like that video. You got to be a subscriber to this YouTube channel. And you have to leave a comment. So make sure you go check that out. It's a fantastic breakdown for the entire main slate over on FanDuel. And we are going to jump in and we're going to use all of our knowledge and all of our statistics that we have to bring you the top 6 stacks that we enjoy in Week 5. So let's get to it. So as always, these videos are sponsored by Outlier.Bet. So if you have not already checked them out, make sure you go check out Outlier. You can check out all the insights they have for all of the sports. We've got NBA coming back in a couple of weeks. NHL is back, college football, MLB, NFL. It is all there. So make sure you check it out. If you guys want to sign up, the link to sign up is down below. If you use our link to sign up, show us proof, and we're going to give you a free month of FTA+. So check that out today. You can do sports bets. You can do matchup breakdowns for football. You can do it all. So make sure you go check out Outlier.Bet and FantasyTeamAdvisors.com. So what we're going to do is we are going to look into here. We're going to look at the matchups, and we are going to see the ones that we like. So first off, Vegas odds. Now you can find this under there. The highest over-under as of now, and again, this is Friday, so it will update, and we will update this. Normally we update the Vegas odds usually about Sunday morning. Bengals-Ravens, okay? Now, the Ravens are a 2.5-point favorite. It is a 49.5 over-under, and that brings us to one of our first stacks. So I really love Lamar Jackson. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at him. Yes, he's 7,500. He's the second highest priced guy out there, but he absolutely shredded last week against Buffalo. So the thing is, he's only passing it, 18 times, completed 13 passes, 156 yards, but had 2 touchdowns. So he's going to get the points there. But he also ran it for a touchdown. Did fumble and lose that, but I like this matchup here. I think this is a very competitive game, and we've got to match him up with some people. So if we are looking at like red zone stats, the Bengals rank 17th against the quarterback in the red zone out of 32. They've given up 746 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They've also given up 109 yards on the ground to rushing quarterbacks. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson is probably number 1 or number 2 rushing quarterback, depending if you think Josh Allen is better, which, maybe he is, maybe he's not. Lamar Jackson is actually the second ranked quarterback of all quarterbacks so far through 4 weeks. He's got 308 yards on the ground and 2 tutties. So I like that matchup for him. You're going to get stuff from him. Whether or not he's throwing it or running it, he's going to get you those points. But now, who are the players that I want to stack with? Well, first off, it shouldn't be no surprise, Derrick Henry. Now, it's going to be a very expensive stack, so we have to find some value. But we look at this. Henry had 199 yards last week. I don't know why they couldn't just give him one yard on the ground and then 10. So he had 209 combined, 38.9 fantasy points. Had 33.4 the week before that. He's getting the touchdowns, 2 a game almost, the last 2 games. Now he has a matchup against Cincy, which I really like this matchup for him. So if you look at the matchup, on the ground, they rank 25th out of 32. You can't really stop Derrick Henry. Overall, they're giving up a ton of points right in the middle. There's going to be a ton of points in this game, and I want to take advantage of that. So usually we don't like to stack a quarterback with a running back, but in this situation, Lamar Jackson's more like a running back as well. He also throws the ball, and Derrick Henry is just an absolute beast. So I am stacking those two. And then it comes down to the wide receivers because the tight ends this year, especially Isaiah Likely had one good week 1. Mark Andrews has done nothing. Now, I think it's about time to give up on Mark Andrews. I don't know. I just, you could go out on a limb if you think this is the week. Cool. I'm not. But if we are looking at the wide receivers that I want in this one, Zay Flowers is obviously number 1, 6,400, 10.1. Rashad Bateman is there. Nelson Aguilar is there. Hasn't really done much. Bateman really hasn't either. It's basically Zay Flowers. So let's see if you're stacking these guys. 4,700 the way to, and then let's say just throw in a defense. Just to say we threw in a defense, say we throw in the Panthers. Now we're at 5,100 the rest of the way. Tight end's really a throw it at the wall, see if it sticks type this year. So yeah, that's kind of what you're looking at. But in the same sense, if you think the Ravens are going to go up, they're going to be a competitive ball game and that stack's going to work and the over-under is the highest as of now, we got to bring it back with someone from Cincy. 1 or 2 guys from Cincy. So obviously everyone's going to be on Jamar Chase. There's a reason he's 8,000, 17.5 is what he's averaging a game. So, but it is very hard to put him in there because you throw him in there and then you can only do 4,400 the rest of the way. You go Yosevich. He's half the price, averaging 10.1. He's still averaging those. Obviously, didn't have a very good game when T. Higgins was back, but he would be a cheap option in a bring back game if you think that's going to be part of the bring back. The other one you could look at, everyone's going to be on Zach Moss. I'm on Chase Brown. So you could look at Chase Brown, and if we did go to Yosevich, you're still averaging 54.33. So it is not a bad one. Obviously, Joe Burrow on the flip side, if you were to do, and we'll talk about that. So I think the number one stack that I want to look at, it's going to be expensive. So we're going to have to watch for some more value to open up, kind of like we just got the news today. But I do like having the Ravens as our number one stack. So Jamar Chase is obviously very expensive. If you don't want to pay up, you go Yosevich. If you want to look at T. Higgins, I don't mind that either. But I really like Chase Brown a little bit more than Zach Moss. But I think they're pretty, clear-cut 1A, 1B type players for them. So the second stack I want to look at, and I haven't been reading up on this, and this is, whether or not you're doing, this is just a Sunday through Monday slate. I know people don't play it usually, but I just wanted to show you what we're looking at. It's Brock Purdy. So we look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco, the 49ers. So currently, the 49ers have the highest implied team total at 27.67. Did open up at, they had a 7.5 point line. It started at 9.5. So hopefully it comes down a little bit and this game can be a little bit more competitive. But I'm definitely really liking what we're going to see because Purdy has all of his targets back. Like George Kittle is questionable, but I highly doubt he misses. I think he plays. Through 4 weeks, 1,100 yards already, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His worst week since week 1, but the Jets' defense was really good. Arizona gives up the 4th most amount of fantasy points to the opposing quarterback this year. They rank 31st out of 32 against the quarterback in the red zone, giving up 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 3 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks. Now, he's not going to rush a lot, but he still gets up there and runs. So I love Brock Purdy here. Now, we could be looking at Jordan Mason. We know what we're getting out of him. He's had all but one good week. His price is $7,400. Arizona, they rank 27th in the red zone against the running backs. 501 yards through the ground, 5 touchdowns. They've given up also 128 yards through the air to running back. So you've got Jordan Mason. So obviously, if you think he's going to dump off pass to him, he doesn't do it a ton. Jordan Mason would be in there. But let's get to the wide receivers. Obviously, Debo's there. He's back. Just kind of looking at the way Arizona is. They've already given up 605 yards through the air to quarterbacks in 4 weeks. They are giving up an average of 34 fantasy points to the opposing wide receiver. So Debo's obviously number one. Ayuk hasn't really done much. Maybe it's the week he does. But even with Samuel, he didn't do much. Obviously, we know all about Juwan Jennings. He had a fantastic week 3 with 49.5 fantasy points. That is an outlier. And speaking of outlier, go check out Outlier.Bet. It's probably for me Debo. Okay? You obviously do have other ones that haven't done anything. Juwan Jennings' fantasy points per game the average is up there because he had one huge game. You're going to save money with him. Maybe this is the week we go back to Juwan Jennings. Maybe it's Ayuk. But let's just look at Debo because we know Debo. Then obviously we are looking at tight end. George Kittle is questionable. Did not practice Thursday. Rib injury. I fully expect him to play. Had back-to-back weeks with touchdowns. Did not play in week 3. I think he's going to be here. They're just being cautious with him because he's a big guy. 2 touchdowns. I would put him in there. Now, if you do that, you're averaging about 5,200 the rest of the way. So what is the bring back in this game? Because if you look at this, if Vegas is right and the 49ers are up big, Arizona's going to have to be throwing the ball a lot. Who is that? Of course we know who that is. Marvin Harrison. 7,500, 243 yards, another touchdown. He's got 4 touchdowns his last 3 games. He's the dude, and they're going to be feeding him if they're playing from behind. So you throw him in there, we're still averaging 4,700. So if we're looking for another one, is it Greg Dortch? Maybe. Is it Michael Wilson? I kind of like Michael Wilson a little bit more. They are right about the same price. So you could come back with a Michael Wilson. You got that game stack of San Francisco, Arizona. You're 4,800. Then we throw in a defense. Again, when you're just doing a defense, this is just to try to build something. Panthers against Caleb Williams, I don't mind. Depending on where you're going with this, we could figure it out. Let's just throw Panthers in there for fun. And now you're at 5,700 for a running back, 2 running backs, and a wide receiver. So that is our second stack with the bring back of Arizona. Now, let's go number 3. This one right here, Jordan Love. Now, it looked like it was tragedy last week. Beginning, didn't do anything. He threw the ball 54 times, playing from behind. Okay? 389 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did have 3 interceptions, and then got those tutties. Runs a little bit, not much. 6 yards isn't much. We look at this. He had a huge game. After looking like he was out of it, huge game. So we draft him. Then we get to the wide receivers. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Like, Reed is going to be expensive. Wicks, you're going to save $1,500. With Wicks, he had 2 touchdowns last week. I think a lot of people are going to be on him. Reed in that same game still had a really good game. 139 yards and a touchdown. So they were both involved in that. I think they can both be involved in this again. So I think we can fit both of them in there. I don't trust the running back here. I don't trust the tight end. These are the ones that I would look at. Sometimes you do multiple different stacks. Sometimes you just want to do one, QB plus 1, which would be Wicks, or QB Love plus Reed. Not both. But in this game, I think we can see some fireworks in this one. So if we look at the Vegas odds, 48.5 over under, and you've got the Packers being a 3-point favorite. So they're thinking it's going to be a close game. If it's a close game and it's a high over under, I think both teams score a lot. If it follows that trend, just kind of like what we saw with Minnesota Green Bay last weekend, we could see in this game. Now, the bring back to there are the Rams. So what Rams are we going to bring back? Obviously, Kupp is out. Nakua is out. Kyron Williams makes sense. If we look at Green Bay against the running back, they are 22nd against the running back in the red zone. They are 20th against the running back on DraftKings. They give up an average of 24 fantasy points per game against the running back. Really, they're not, other than Kyron Williams, it's nobody else. So I do want to get some Kyron in here. If the game is close, they're going to run the ball with him. I would not be surprised if Kyron has 1 or 2 touchdowns at minimum. And that's exactly what we want to see. So you've got him. But then if they're playing from behind, who are the guys that are going to be catching the balls from Matt Stafford? Obviously, Tutu Atwell. 4,900 is a very cheap option. Demarcus Robinson, another cheap option there. Okay? Those are probably the only ones that I'm going to go down with. Tight end, I don't mind Parkinson. So I am going to put Tutu in there. You could go Parkinson. If we look at Green Bay against the tight end, They ranked 29th against the tight end in the red zone, and they ranked 26th overall against the tight end, and he's a cheap $3,700 tight end. So you throw him in there, and that is a game stack if I've ever seen one. So I'm not saying I'm going to do this exact thing. Maybe I take out Atwell and go Parkinson, or maybe I take out Williams and go those two. I could see that. But you throw in a defense. Overall, you throw in a defense. Again, I'm not using the Panthers everything. I'm just showing you a cheap defense and then go from there. You can average 6,700 there. Or you take Kyron out. You can go with 7,000 average the rest of the way. You can get Derrick Henry in there. You could go running back situation of maybe even Jordan Mason, and then our flex. We're at 5,800 for a flex option. Now, these are not all one. I mean, if you think Kelsey's back, we could go Kelsey. If you think Najee's back, he's got a great matchup against Denver or against Dallas. Great spot there. JSN, he was that last touchdown, last pass of the game. If it wasn't intercepted, it was a touchdown to him, and I would have split 7,500 in the showdown. No big deal. He's being targeted. 12 targets last game, 13.1. All he needed was one more. You could throw him in there. Like, that's a lineup. That's a game stack lineup with the Rams and the Packers. You still got your number one tight end or number 1 and 2 running backs for the week, basically, in Henry and Mason. You still got the Panthers defense. You could still do stuff. Like, don't get twisted on defense. The majority of the defenses, it's pretty much a punt every week. There's going to be that one defense that intercepts 3 times, that scores 3 touchdowns. But this is just to build a stack with you. So that is the Rams and the Green Bay Packers stack that I wanted to look at. Next one I want to look at. We've got Joe Burrow, because it's the highest scoring game. If you think Lamar is going to do well, Joe Burrow is probably going to have to throw the ball a ton if he's playing from behind. So we put Burrow in there, and he's down here at 6,400. We are going to save some. So obviously, his number 1 is Jamar Chase. I'm throwing him in there. And running back. So we do have Moss or Brown. Again, I'm kind of on the Brown train here, so I'm looking at Chase Brown. So that's those 3 there. Now, we bring it back. Obviously, we're bringing it back with Baltimore in this game. I'm looking at Zay Flowers. I'm looking at Derrick Henry. Now, there you go. That is 5 players in this game. Now, you don't have to bring it back with all of them. So Derrick Henry, I'm great with. If you want to go Derrick Henry and you don't want to go with Zay Flowers, I am completely okay with that as well. We're at 4,400 the rest of the way. You put your defense in there. You plug and play a defense. Whoever you think is going to do good. If you think Seahawks are going to do good against Seattle or against the Giants, which is fine, you're still at 4,600 the rest of the way. Your tight end, we can still, and we've talked about it, you can still go with Colby Parkinson. And now we're at 5,000 for wide receivers and a flex. I like this as well. The Ravens defense, they're not bad, obviously, but if they're playing from behind, we're going to have to see some things out of Joe Burrow, and I think this could be a shootout, which is another one that I absolutely love here. So our number 4 stack is Joe Burrow. That brings us to our number 5 stack. Geno Smith, absolute just 56 passes last game. 395 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ran for 38 yards as well. 25.6. He was 5,900. They've kept him at 5,900, which is weird. Whatever. Just had a career day, but that's fine. But if we look at the Giants, so the New York Giants, they've given up 851 yards through the air from quarterbacks, 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception. They rank 13th against the quarterback, but Geno Smith, if he throws it again like that, I love that matchup for him. So I'm looking at Geno. Obviously, with wide receivers, Metcalf is questionable. It's a hand. He'll play. 19.4. I would use him, and then I would use Jackson. There. 5,800. That's the stack. Like Tyler Lockett, I don't know. I don't like Lockett as much as I like Njigba. So if we look at that, and then you go Lockett, he is cheaper, but he's also questionable. So those would be the 3 I'd look at. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because this is where we have to find value. Because originally, it was Malik Neighbors, but he is already out. So Malik Neighbors is already out. So wide receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, questionable tag. It's a heel. He'll practice. He'll play. He's been actually surprising all but 1 week against Washington. 14 targets last week. With Malik Neighbors out, he could be even more. I'm getting Wan'Dale Robinson in there right now. Also, with Malik Neighbors out, maybe we're looking at Darius Slayton. Game log wise, hasn't really done much. Just getting a feel for it. I think it's Wan'Dale Robinson. If you watched our showdown for Thursday Night Football, I said I had a feeling Sterling Shepard was going to have a touchdown. He's going to have a big game. Touchdown. Got a touchdown in that game. Robinson kind of feels that same way. We're waiting on the questionable tag, but I think it'll be removed Saturday or Sunday morning, and we should be good. So I love Geno. I love Metcalf. Now, you could look at the running back. So if we look at the Giants against running backs, and you can find all of this information on the matchup tool, which if you go to the website under NFL, it's the Bacon Station. So definitely make sure you check out the NFL Bacon Station if you're trying to bring home that bacon. Now, the Giants against the running backs. They actually ranked 13th against them, against the red zone rank, and they ranked 15th out of 32 against the opposing running backs. But again, if you saw what Kenneth Walker was able to do, doing a backflip and flip-flop, sumo wrestle up and around, touchdown. Huge game against Detroit. Huge game. So if he is out, obviously that opens up Charbonnet for a cheaper option at $400 cheaper. Didn't really do much with Kenneth Walker back. So Charbonnet, if Walker's out or in, Charbonnet's probably out for me. So you could put Walker in there. You could go different directions. You're still averaging whatever you want. That's kind of the bring back. Other than that, like if you look at Seattle against the running back, they're right next to Giants almost. They're really good against the running backs. I haven't really given up much. So that, Singletary's, I'm wavering on Singletary. But if we're looking at other Giants, there's not really others. Tight end wise, like Theo Johnson hasn't done much. Manhurst, Bellinger, like that's kind of I'm out on that. Like I don't really love the Giants as a stack. I will bring Robinson in as a bring back if we're going with that kind of stack. And then finally, the very last stack for this week, we've got Mr. Josh Allen. Obviously did not have a very good game last week. Baltimore just ran all over them, was up big. Then they took him out late in the third or early in the fourth. He's had 2 bad weeks. One was against Miami where they were up so big he didn't need to do anything. It was James Cook week, and then last week really wasn't anything. I'm going back to the well with Josh Allen. Then that brings us to, are we looking at James Cook? So if we look at Houston, if we look at the Vegas odds in this one, they've got this game as 47.5 over under, with the Bills only being a 1-point favorite. Could be a shootout as well. So we look at that. James Cook, Houston against the running back. They are currently, they rank 17th against the running back in the red zone. They rank 7th overall against them on DraftKings. So, he didn't really have a good week against Baltimore, but they took everybody out and they let their second and third strings come in and play. So while I don't mind him because he does take off dump off passes as well. So he does take passes off and get some yardage. 48 yards against Jacksonville, 32 yards against Arizona through the air as well. So he is an option for you. You could put him in there. Then we get to wide receivers. With Shakir being out, probably going to be Keon Coleman. Could be Matt Collins, Curtis Samuel. There are different directions to go. I don't think it's MVS. I think it's probably Coleman or Samuel. And you can see the difference in pricing is not much. So you could look at that. But and tight end wise, it's Kincaid. So if you wanted to go for Buffalo, I don't mind that. I probably would take out Cook if I'm going Kincaid. But Kincaid at 5,300, I don't mind that. Now the bring back would be Houston. Nico Collins, obviously stud. Dominant, all but 1 week. He is there. 36.1 last week. Is that it? Well, you've got Stephon Diggs. 31 out of Nico. He's still been in there. He's obviously not the wide receiver one, probably in his head about that. But if this matchup stays good, if this matchup is a close game like they're thinking, they're probably both looking pretty good here. Now, the running back situation for Houston, Mixon is questionable. He's missed some games. Not expected to suit up against the Bills. So, Mixon, you're out. Okay? You're out. So, obviously, Akers has stepped in, hasn't done a ton. Okay? Did have 1 touchdown receiving in week 3 against Minnesota. Didn't do anything against a very easily beatable Jacksonville secondary and defense. And against Chicago, really didn't do much either. I probably am off of Akers. You could look at Wale, maybe a little bit. Pretty good week last week. Had a rushing or a receiving touchdown, 47 yards through the air. You could look at him. I don't mind that. I don't know if I will be looking at that. I don't know if I'll do anything outside of Diggs and Collins. You're at 3,500. Again, defense-wise, blah, blah, blah. You go Seahawks, 3,600. You could go that way. You probably can't. So I'm probably taking Diggs out. And again, these are just suggestions. You do not have to build your lineups like this. But the Bills are my number 6 stack. And things can change throughout the week. So definitely stick around. Check out FantasyTeamAdvisors.com, the cheat sheet. With the cheat sheet, we do have stacks. We do have lineups. We do have projections. We have our cheat sheet for FanDuel and DraftKings, for showdowns. And don't forget, we do have a London game this week, which I don't love. I don't love that at all. But we do have that game, which you can't play on this slate. It's only a showdown. But yeah, those are the stacks. So number 1, Lamar Jackson with the bringbacks of the Bengals. Number 2 is Brock Purdy with bringbacks of Arizona. Number 3 is Jordan Love with some bringbacks of the Rams. 4 is Joe Burrow with bringback of some. I think Derrick Henry has to be in most of your lineups this week. Bringback of the Baltimore. Number 5 is Geno Smith and a couple of bringbacks, or maybe just one bringback from the Giants. And number 6 is Josh Allen with bringbacks of some form of what we just talked about. Nico Collins, maybe Wale, maybe Stephon Diggs, maybe a tight end. So those are our top ones. Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Geno Smith, and Josh Allen. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, get those down below. Hit those likes in this video and leave comments in this video. Let me know who you think is going to be the highest scoring stack. And if you are correct and you are still watching this video, we will give you a free week if you're still listening. So make sure you go check out the breakdown of the main slate, which we'll link at the end of the video. Make sure you go check out all of the other things we have on the website. FantasyTeamAdvisors.com is the website. Good luck this week. And as always, let's bring home some bacon. Peace.